Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Ajuri Ngelale. I guess it doesn't matter where you look today on a morning like this. You're going to be hearing about the Petroleum Industry Bill, which has been passed into law. And as they say, there's a Yoruba proverb, the long and short of it is that on the day of the death of an elephant, you shall be seeing all sorts of knives. And maybe I'll take it from there because since yesterday, it's been out there. You've heard it all. And we shall continue today as well. But not everybody is pleased. Most are. Yes, it's the right step forward. It's been stuck in the National Assembly for more than a decade. Finally, it is out. But is everybody pleased? I was reading the papers and the foremost economist and Rewane, who is from there, said, well, a bill that isn't perfect is, it's better than no bill at all. So they will manage it, but they are very, very unhappy, according to, and he's not the only one, because in that area, they wanted 10%. They wanted 10% allocation, but 5% minimum. As it happens, the National Assembly has agreed on 3%. And by the way, in case you're wondering, I'm talking with Mr. Bala Saka, our friend. He's a resident petroleum engineer, if we ever had one. Thank you very much for coming on, Bala.
Thank you.
All of the positives, we take that for granted. But for a moment, maybe, and by the way, let me just alert that we're also hoping to hear from our friend, Mr. Ajuri Ngelale, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. But as I was saying, yeah, I'm taking all the good for granted. But we can't look away from the hurt of some people. I mean,
correct.
Yeah. So there's that aspect to it too. And the other thing that we probably will be looking at is, now where does all of this go at the end of the day? What is the effect to the ordinary man? And I imagine the ordinary man is going to feel it most in the price of
distillates.
That's distillates, which is the technical thing you professionals use. We are calling it petrol.
Petroleum
we are
products.
calling it, yes, we're calling it petrol. We have been alerted in the past when we had the managing director of NNPC on a program that this is the only country perhaps where the price of PMS, is that what petrol is, PMS, is higher than the price of diesel. And said that needs to stop and will stop. That usually there's no more than a 10 naira difference between the two. That alerts me that where are we now? 160 something. It's going to come to 300 naira per liter. Let's take it from there. Maybe I'm not taking the conventional route into this topic. Let's take it from there. Are we to look forward to 300 naira per liter subsequently?
Maybe at the beginning. And with time, there will be graduation to 350, to 400, to 500. And then people will understand the meaning of an imported focus or import focus deregulation.
When you say
which will be very dangerous.
But when you say that, the only way it can go there would be as a result of market forces. Since now what this bill is going to do is remove anything about a subsidy. Everything is now to be controlled by market forces. Are you suggesting that market forces could push us up ultimately to 400-500 naira?
Correct. Because by the time you look at the indices, the only thing, one favor I want to beg of you, energy journalists, is this. Anybody who says some of these things will not come to pass, please document them. Then in a year's time, call us back. Please. Because one of the problems we've been having in this country is there was a time somebody said, devaluate the naira. Now we've seen the effect. Now we've seen how our naira is sinking due to devaluation and depreciation. And you find out that these people are not being called to come and explain. But please, for the first time, in the context of energy journalists, energy economists, energy lawyers, energy engineers, and energy environmentalists. Anybody who says the way Nigeria is going is going to be in the favor of Nigerians and is going to grow the GDP. Please document them, their interviews, and in a year's time, If some of us are amongst the living, invite us again.
It's interesting you say that, because this exactly the opposite of what you've just said is the perspective of the presidency. This is what the presidency expected, that this thing was going to be of benefit to most Nigerians, especially when you inject transparency into the whole thing. Now NNPC is going to become a private company. It's not NNPC Limited. That imposes on it certain obligations. We shall now be getting annual reports. We shall be getting statements. We shall, and all of that is going to be on the stock exchange. So all the wuru-wuru that we've been used to in NNPC in the past, all of that is supposed to disappear.
Transparency is different from profitability. They are two different things. And when you talk about government, whether people accept it or not, public entity or government is completely different from private entities. Private entities are out for profit maximization and cost minimization, while government, in this case public entities, are supposed to provide goods and services, then cushion the pains of their citizens so that their citizens will be gainfully engaged, comply with their civic responsibilities of taxes, royalties and levies, and be able to grow the GDP. So the philosophies are different. You know why I'm not that fearful? It's because government is not entirely out of this. Government, even though, yes, I'm not too sure. Maybe we'll find out as we move along whether this is the equivalent of a privatization of NNPC. But government is not out of the ballpark. Government is still in the ballpark. So they're going to be keeping an eye out for us. That's where
they're going to be keeping an eye out for us.
Getting it wrong. And it is in this kind of government that you see lawyers banking in, suing government, and making cool money or cash for their clients. So if government is in between, one leg is here, by the time some clever Nigerian lawyers start suing, the government will start bleeding.
Okay, this is just where my friend Mr. Ajuri Ngelale, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. Good morning to you, Ajuri. You're going to put your leg into this potopoto now. You've been hearing how it's been going so far. My guest is concerned that at the end of the day, we the people are going to be hurt by this. He said, write it down and let's talk in about a year's time and see if it isn't so. I know that's not your view, Ajuri.
Good morning to you, Uncle Yori, and good morning to my dear brother, Zaka, and of course, good morning to all Nigerians. Let me just say that we don't have any kind of, illusion about the fact that the NNPC has been obviously a long-standing institution in the country, which Nigerians have grown to mistrust. And over time, rightly so, because of the decades of maladministration of that particular institution and really government at large. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to say that Nigerians have, they don't have any right to be skeptical about anything that NNPC is doing. They've earned the right to be skeptical. It's our job now to really convey the difference between what is happening now as against what has happened for the last 40 years or so.
Okay,
so with that said,
if you're going to go that route, Ajuri, if you're going to go that route, indeed, it's part of what we also expect. It would be nice to know what is going to differ now that the bill is in place with what it used to be before?
I'm sorry, Uncle Yori, it's part of your question cut out.
I said I like the trajectory you want to take, which is probably what is going to be different now from what used to be, and also maybe in saying so you will comment on the fear. Because I was just referencing the group managing director of NNPC, who has alerted us in the recent past that it's not done anywhere for the price of premium PMS to be higher than that of diesel, and that so when that comes, people are fearful that it's going to be somewhere around 300 naira to the liter.
Right. Thank you very much. So let me be very clear about on that issue, that what this legislation does, the PIB that's just been signed into law by President Muhammed Buhari, is that it sets the framework for the full deregulation of the sector, which is what many Nigerians have even been calling for. And of course, that does entail, just like everywhere else in the world, market forces to determine the price of distillates, such as PMS. Now, if you look around the world at what oil prices are, what people are paying at the pump for oil and gas, and I'm talking about even oil and gas producing countries, by the way, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's the US, whether it's Russia, or even some of the smaller ones like Angola, to a limited extent, even Ghana. You go to nearby Ghana now, you'll be seeing that they're paying more than 500 naira per liter as we speak today. All right, so where we are right now is that the PIB, the new instrument, is going to now create the framework for the full deregulation. But in no way does it say that as of September 1, 2021, in a few days, we're just going to shoot up to, to whatever the actual price should be. What it does do is it sets the framework for us to eventually do what we all know, where at some point we're going to remove the subsidy. Everybody knows that. All Nigerians know. They know that this is not economically sustainable for the country. I think we should respect the intelligence of Nigerians on this issue. They know that. The question they're asking is, what measures are you putting in place to ensure that you do it in an organized manner that does not unduly punish the ordinary man who's dealing with the rebound from a pandemic, dealing with inflation, dealing with the various issues that the nation is currently facing economically. Not just our nation, by the way, but nations around the world as a result of the recovery from the pandemic. So yes, so the framework is in place, but that does not mean that we're going to immediately get into the full removal of the subsidy. And I want to make that very, very clear. There are still negotiations going on with labor, and that will continue until we have an arrangement that all Nigerians will be happy with. So that's that. But I want to state.
Yes. Continue, please.
May I just go into the bill? My friend Mr. Zaka has his reservations, and that's okay. But I really want to make clear why it is that President Muhammed Buhari and this administration firmly believe, resolutely, that this is in the best interest of not just government, but of our people. First and foremost, we have finally put to rest, and you raised it a little bit in your intro, the issue of how we are going to take care of our host communities, right? This has been a long-standing issue. We know that for the last 2 decades, this nation has lost trillions of naira, billions of dollars to the maladministration of the NDDC, essentially aligning the pockets of elites from the region and even elites from other parts of the country through the use of NDDC, right? So that's the history. Now, what we are saying is that with the PIB that has now just been signed into law with Mr. President, we now have the new Host Communities Development Trust, HCDT, which in effect is stipulated, it's by law, it must be fully running within the next 12 months from the date of signing of the law into effect yesterday. And how it works is that we are now going to have a trust that is going to be administered in such a way that 75% of the total trust fund will be applied only to capital projects in the oil and gas producing communities of the Niger Delta. 20% out of the 100%, 75% for capital projects, 20% will go to what we call a reserve fund. This fund is basically for the day when oil, the viability of oil expires on the international market, and then they will now have this reserve fund to cater to their needs in the post-oil era. And then 5% maximum cap has been placed on overhead spending, administrative costs of running the trust, so that you don't have a situation like we've had with other government enterprises where overhead costs and administrative costs take up 40% of the expenditure. So all of that has been done, and that is, by the way, this trust is 3% of the total annual operating expenditure of the international oil companies, which last year was up to $16 billion. Yeah. And people forget that if you take 3% of $16 billion, you're looking at over $500 million a year, more than what the NDDC is seeing in 1 year. That is what this trust is going to be getting. So you have NDDC on one hand, all right, then you now have essentially a second NDDC, but this one is not run like NDDC, it's run as a trust that's going to directly impact on these communities. So it befuddles some of us when we hear people saying that this is somehow oppressive of the oil and gas producing communities. If it's oppressive to anybody, it will be oppressive to those elites who have been manipulating the people on the ground in my region,
Yeah.
telling them that they're working for them when in fact they're working for themselves.
We didn't say on our program that it's oppressive, but that people of that area are dissatisfied.
No, not you, Uncle Yori, not you.
Yeah,
I'm talking of some of the stakeholders in the region.
Indeed. As you know, some of those stakeholders have actually signaled that, look, this legislation is better than no legislation at all. In fact, I referenced Mr. Bismarck Riwani, foremost economist and analyst in that regard. But as he said, it's a welcome approach. It's just that he would have wanted more. And I guess you can't please everybody. The Niger Delta had signaled that it wanted 10%. The National Assembly, the House of Reps gave them 5%. The Senate said 3%. They came together to harmonize. It was 3%. There are those who are angry about that. But let me bring up the other matter of 30% about the basins. There are a lot of people who are interpreting this to mean for the north alone. But there are basins in other places than the north. Maybe you can talk to us about that for clarity, because when the bill comes out, when we get a copy of the gazetted something, then we'll actually know for sure. But in the meantime, talk about that whole matter about people saying that 30% for the north to go and develop and prospect in the north. There are basins in other places than the north, aren't there?
Yeah, thank you very much, Uncle Yori. Indeed, I read the report in one of the national dailies, really trying to emphasize this issue. You know, unfortunately, there will always be some commentators who tend toward, you know, looking at every issue from an ethnic or religious lens. That's the unfortunate reality we have in some parts of the country today. So let me just deal with the facts of the matter. The fact of the matter is that when we're developing new basins and new exploration activities in other parts of the country, outside of the Niger Delta, the resources that will come from those parts of the country will go to the same federation account from which these same oil producing states will all be receiving their derivation from. So really, it's amazing to some of us that you would have a situation where we're working very hard to expand the pie for all Nigerians to benefit from in terms of hard infrastructure, roads, bridges, airports, seaports, power plants, dams, railways, and the like. And then you have a situation where some people are saying that no, we should only focus on the Niger Delta states where you have these where you have these exploration activities that have been concentrated there. And then we should ignore all of the untapped oil reserves we have in the other basins. I'm
going to interrupt you, Ajuri. I beg your pardon. Ajuri, I'm going to interrupt you because I have a call on the line, but you know how it works. We'll come back to you. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling in. Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me, please? All right. Uncle Yori, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I do not have issues with the aspect that concerns community and the benefits that accrues to them for lifting oil in their areas. Whatever is given to them or has been given to them under this law is at least better than what they were getting before. But that is not the area that really concerns me. The area that concerns me is how does the ordinary man in the street benefit from this law? Engineer Zaka said something that you hear people who are in comfortable positions or close to government and earning government money saying that there is no other country where oil is cheaper than Nigeria, that 500 naira is what some other countries buy it from. We don't think about the level of income that people earn in this country. Mm-hmm. Somebody that is earning 18,000 naira, he buys petrol to fuel his generator, he buys kerosene to cook. And if 300 naira is what he's going to spend to buy 1 liter of petrol, how much of it can he buy in a month to out of 18,000 naira? If we are saying deregulation is what is imperative, then there should be higher income. The legislator, for example, who is earning 30 million in a month, it cannot affect him. You don't expect another a civil servant that is earning 18,000 to be buying from the same market with that person. Why is it that these considerations are not there? I would have thought that Nigeria is expecting a refinery, even though it's from a private sector. That refinery has not come into stream. And all of a sudden, we're now seeing 300 naira coming. I mean, do we think about the poor people at all?
All right, then. Thank you very much, Mr. George. I saw that Bala was nodding in agreement to some of those points. Would you like to comment on it before I return to Ajuri?
Yeah, but let me start even from probably just quickly.
Yes.
I'll be very brief. You see, before now, the Petroleum Industry Bill has been there for ages, right? And this time I want to talk as a technocrat, as somebody that has zero political ambition, and as somebody who has worked in the Niger Delta on land, swamp, shallow waters, and deep waters. To that extent. You see, before now, we had probably like 6-7 years ago, we had a 223-page document that was supposed to be the PIB document. And even then, there were only 3 contending issues: the power of the petroleum minister, host community, and frontier basins. Then about 6 years ago, I'm sorry to use this word, we just decided to prodigalize and created Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, host community, whatever bill. After prodigalizing for 5 years or so, we came back to almost the same consolidated bill. And that's where we are today. As far as I'm concerned, I am happy that the bill is now an act or a law. I have not seen the assented bill.
We shall see it.
Yes,
in due course.
yes. But before the assented bill, I knew, or my understanding was that, and including me, some I's needed to be dotted.
Okay.
Some T's needed to be crossed.
Okay.
The bill was,
you don't think that has been achieved? Because
that was why I said,
the president must have gone over it with a microscope.
So
they must have gone over it with a microscope
like me,
and knows that you can't please everybody in a situation like
know.
this. So it would have taken the road that is of benefit to most, I would imagine.
Exactly. So for somebody like me, my joy will be fullest after going through the assented bill.
Okay. In the meantime, let me hear from Mr. Kazim in Jos. Good morning, Mr. Kazim.
Good morning,
Yeah, please.
And
Yori, please go ahead.
fellow Nigerians. I want to start with the Petroleum Industrial Bill.
Yes.
As we have been expecting this to come to life, but I want to congratulate the people living at the community and the government at large. Because if justice would be done to that bill, I think it will be beneficial to those people and the federal government. Because a lot of things that are being boycotted that's supposed to be channeled directly into the development of that particular place will be really actualized. But by the way, we are looking at this bill, but a lot of mismanagement that's happening. We had our refineries being budget to be like, what will I say, like to be renovated with huge amount of money, which run through the, let me say, space of 3 years. After this government, we're still looking at that project to come to life, okay? And this very government are still telling us that they're going, we should be expecting to buy petrol at 300 naira.
No, they haven't said so yet. They haven't said so. We are just working this out. And in any case, as Mr. Ajuri Ngelale was saying, it's not going to be the immediate concern. I was deducing that from having spoken with the managing director of NNPC a few weeks ago.
Yes, I'm trying to land. We are looking at the possibility because most of the things said by this government come to life. If it is part of increment or like looking at the, let me see, restructuring and whatever it affects the refinery. So he said that Ghana they used to get petrol at 500 naira. But what I want to understand here is our refineries are not at the shape that we are looking at to stop importing fuel. And how much are we expecting to buy fuel in future? Are we going to start buying fuel at 1,000 because it's depends on the market value that we're going to consume, with our currency always collapsing. So that's one question. And looking at the gas now per kg is 650 naira. And secondly, kerosene is not even easy to come by the masses. So petrol, add to that, being increased. So now, how are they looking at the life of Nigerians? Because most of this revenue that they are saying is going to be diverted to develop structure. We are not seeing that structure.
Okay, I want to thank you very much. I've got to interrupt, please, Mr. Kazim, and thank you very much for calling in and raising those particular points. But I only interrupted because so as to give room to a few more people to be able to call in. Ajuri, coming back to you, I know you've been listening to this, and all of these issues, I imagine, will be addressed in some measure by the regulatory functions that are also now spelled out and included in this bill. But I didn't want to put any words into your mouth. How would you relate to those concerns being raised?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would just love an opportunity to be able to respond to all of the things that have been said. So much has been said. Let me start from my friend, Mr. Zakar. I think it's really important that as we move forward as a nation, that we actively evolve a nature of public analysis and discourse and conversation that really is not caustic. It's not accusatory, but we raise germane issues and we keep issues aside and not personalities being involved. Let me just say also that when you look at the contents of this bill across the board, and I'm happy Mr. Zakar admitted of his own admission that he has not even had a chance to go through the bill. It's difficult to criticize what you have not gone through. So I want to take you through the bill as somebody who has gone through it.
But only very briefly, please, because
I will answer you.
The bill that the president assented to
is the assented bill.
Yes. So let me go ahead and go through that. First and foremost, you have an annual mandate now, compulsory independent audit of the new Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited that's going to be conducted. You also have a compulsory annual audit, mandatory. It's not by choice. It's not by the integrity of any public official. It must be done by law. Of the new Oversight Commission, the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. Both of them will have their books audited every single year by mandate, by this law. That's number one. Number two, we have put in place a brand new set, a very robust set of new tax regulations that basically impose hefty penalties on any stakeholder in the sector, whether it's an international oil company or an indigenous company operating in the sector, for non-compliance in terms of tax defaults, whether it's for incorrect accounting, false statements, and underreporting of returns. For example, there are going to be now heavy financial penalties for those kinds of infractions, and they will all be monitored. So all of that is within this law. In addition to that, and this is very, very important, we have put aside, we've talked about host communities development. You earlier raised the issue, I think before questions came in, I was discussing the 30% that is going to the exploration across new basins around the country so that we can maximize and manifest all of the untapped potential of our oil and gas reserves in the country for the benefit of all Nigerians, not just one region or the other. So
you're talking about that being in what you call the Host Community Development Trust.
Yes, well, no. The Host Community Development Trust deals with physical infrastructure, social infrastructure, academic, health, so many different types of infrastructure in the oil and gas producing communities, overseen by the communities themselves, not by some imperial state governor or a local government chairman. The trust deals with the actual owners of the community, the leaders of the community, and then the people of the community. Then what we're doing, I want to make this very clear, is separate from the Host Community Development Trust. We also have a mandate in the law that was never on ground before, that essentially mandates all licensees in the midstream and the upstream in particular to ensure that everything they're doing as it relates to environmental management, that they are mandated now. It's not something that we're asking them to do a favor. No, they are now mandated that anywhere they are exploring, they are mandated to rehabilitate and are mandated to mitigate all adverse impact of their own exploration activities.
Okay.
That is built into this law. So we're
All
not
right.
going to have a situation where 20 years from now we're begging, taking people to court because they left somewhere very badly exploited and all of that. We are taking care of all of that in this particular legislation.
Ajuri, I've got to take another caller, and it's Mr. Kasim in Jos, who has been holding on for quite a while. Apologies. Go ahead now, sir. I beg your pardon. It's Alex in Warri. We've already taken Mr. Kasim in Jos. It's Mr. Alex in Warri. Good morning, sir.
Morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Go ahead quickly, please.
This discussion is important to me because I was one of those who worked with Lukman in coming up with this PIB before the man passed on. The intention of the whole thing, like Bala said, is three main things. But one thing I want to mention is very clear. The oil business is a business. So if you divide the frontier areas into leases, and people bid for it, they find the oil, they produce, they pay the royalty and whatever. So why spend that money on that where there are other pressing things? And remember, this is a resource that will go away. We have wasted this resource over the years as a nation, based on corruption and all kinds, from bottom to top.
Well, we haven't maximized. You might say it's the same thing.
So what I'm saying is, why do we want to continue in this direction of diverting money into things that are supposed to be business?
And so the Petroleum Industry Bill, long awaited. In fact, one paper describes it as a watershed moment as Buhari signs the Petroleum Act to overhaul the oil industry. You probably recognize that as This Day headline this morning. And there have been congratulations all around. Whatever the fears were, we begin to see some reassuring headlines. We are sure that there would not be any job losses, that the ascent major victory for Nigeria. But as I said, there still are conversations. Yes, there still are conversations to be had about it. As I said, much as it will benefit Nigeria, people are still talking, and they're saying there are one or two things that we could have spoken about. We could have spoken about a lot, more. But here we are. We have it. Congratulations all around to Mr. President for assenting to the bill. He's broken the jinx. Since he's not the first president since we began this whole process, for whatever reason, and a lot of people believe it had to do with self-interest in various quarters. Maybe I should exclude the presidents, but they refused to assent to the bill. Now, Mr. President Muhammed Buhari has indeed broken that jinx. He signed it. We have a law. There are a lot of benefits, and there also still are one or two comments. Now, you've heard, the presidential spokesperson say that the thing to do is not to narrowly focus on certain aspects. Because you see, this kind of a thing will not please everybody. I made the point. The Niger Delta wanted 10%. House of Reps said, 5% is probably okay. Senate went and cut it down to 3%.
Correct.
So everybody is gnashing their teeth in that area, but I would imagine there's no such thing as a total unanimity of opinion, even in that very Niger Delta area.
Correct.
You'd have to let go of some. This could not have been as perfect as those that are complaining now would have wanted. It doesn't work like that.
Correct. Okay.
And to the question, sir, to the question about, one gentleman called in and asked the question, does this mean we're going to 300 naira? Well, we've been told that, no, that's not the way it works. It's not going to be immediate, but we should just be prepared.
Let me say it straight, and like I said earlier, you see, we are talking about it regardless. Now, regardless, I read the 223-page document of the PIB of 7 years ago. When the National Assembly started going round and round, and they wanted to come up with Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. In fact, basically, I don't want to use the word balkanize. When they broke the PIB into 4, and we were going round and round and round, I read everything. Till now, they call it a consolidated bill, up to the point of passing that bill, I read everything. It's only the president assented bill that I have not gone through. And many people have not gone through that. But regardless, we are talking about an international product or commodity here. Crude oil and gas are international products. And to that extent,
there must be some kind of regulation, and that's what we have now. And it's better than no regulation at all.
Course,
in fact, there are not just better than no regulation at all. There are many benefits that have now been entrenched by law, as the presidential spokesman was saying.
The analysis and the breaking down, and when we start dissecting, those ones will come up. Nobody, this is a public document now. But let me say, regardless of all the conditions or criteria that the PIA now, if I'm right, maybe Petroleum Industry Act is supposed to satisfy, two must be there. One is international acceptance. The second must be local tolerance.
Well,
when we talk about international,
if I'm right, I've been seeing some sort of positive comment from the international community that
let me analyze international acceptance now.
I'll come back to you because in the meantime, Stanley in the United Arab Emirates has called in. Good morning, Stanley in UAE.
Good morning.
Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, great discussion. I just want to make a quick chip-in about the discussion going on.
Sure. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Now, I think this bill, there's so much compounded issues here. Number one, this frontier basin.
Okay.
Now, I remember when I was when we had projects in Nigeria before I came to UAE to work. There was a time, Halliburton to be precise, had a drilling activity in the Chad Basin. There was a time there was an exploration in Gongola Basin. At the end of the day, when the industry, there was so much funds lost to those exploration without yielding. The truth is that we made fun of it in the industry that we ended up getting pure water, hot water. Because we want to explore some things in the Gongola Basin. Now, in the Niger Delta region, I know we have deep sea operation that is declining. Ogoni exploration is declining. The Isoko region, the Delta region, the land activity, they have been given to marginal field. Activities are declining. The Delta side, Biafra activity are declining. Why not focus on where we have possible 100% yield and expand our production? I mean, we are talking of doctor living. I know engineers like me, several of our guys, we are all in the Qatar, UAE and all that because our activity is declining. So why are we pushing, shifting, want to explore over there? Why not focus on where we have this more and try to expand? Are you talking of the petroleum?
I've got to interrupt you now. Forgive me for doing so, Mr. Stanley, because you're being. It sounds to me like you're being very informed as you are commenting. But we already have the bill. We're not discussing processes leading up to what might become a bill. It's already with us, and I would just suggest respectfully that perhaps we should be emphasizing what the positives are. People have already said that they shall approach the National Assembly for amendments, as is indeed their right. Mr. Ajuri Ngelale, what would you like to add to this conversation? Because I want to focus on the benefits. As you know, we are Nigerians. We do so proudly. We will comment on anything, whatever. And this one, as I was pointing out, it's already done. It's a done deal. It's on the ground. What are the benefits that we can look forward to?
Well, yeah, thank you very much. Before I just jump into that very quickly, I would just like to say that comparing the previous attempts at PIB or PIGB, then PIFB and all of what they tried to do before, to the PIB now, is like saying because you understood Bill Clinton's administration, you now know what Joe Biden is doing. That's not how it works. It's a totally different document. And it was built a totally different way in consultation with the international oil companies, with the host communities, the leaders of the Niger Delta, with the executive branch and with the legislative branch. What they did in the 8th Assembly was they essentially, by themselves, in the 8th Assembly, designed a document, right, cut it into some parts, right, forwarded it to Mr. President and said, oh yeah, sign it. when Mr. President read that document, and he now saw that they added stipulations, very self-serving stipulations, that basically said, within 6 months, we're going to sell this percentage of NNPC to private people that we don't know. Within 2 years, 5 years, we're going to sell another percentage to private faces we don't know. That was what was in their bill, and that's why the president didn't sign it. So now the president said, look, everybody come around the table. We're going to get a bill on the table that is in the interest of Nigeria, not in the interest of Nigerian politicians and oil companies. And that is what we have achieved. And that's why I can, with open face, open chest, I can come out and tell you exactly what is in this bill as somebody who is from an oil producing community where we lived on fisheries. And now we cannot even fish in my community anymore because of oil slick. I'm from Eleme local government area of River State. I'm not talking as an outsider. So this bill deals with problems affecting my people and problems affecting communities like mine across the Niger Delta. And I'm proud of what is in this bill. I wouldn't say so otherwise. Let me also say, yes, let me also add that the transition to NNPC becoming a limited liability company is time-stamped. So it is going to occur within 6 months. This isn't something where it's good on paper, but the implementation will be shaky and all of that.
Okay.
Mr. President put in all the safeguards to ensure that exactly what he has intended will come to pass, and it will come to pass on a timeline that will be guided under the presence of his administration.
Let me just say, Ajuri, as you were saying, you have seen it, well, as you've heard us say a couple of times that we haven't seen the gazetted, but you have seen it, and therefore you are able to comment. I would suggest that, and I wouldn't expect you to disagree, that government still has more work to do to explain and keep this conversation going so we can fully and better understand this bill and how it is best for Nigeria, and indeed to show that I was just saying Mr. President has broken a jinx and has signed it, and you know, the credit should go where it is due.
Let me just add on Yori.
Very briefly, please.
As we get this 30% to the exploration of new frontiers of oil and gas discovery in the country, we are going to be able to more than double our current output, which is more wealth for the entire nation, going to this, with the same derivation, going to all the oil producing states, in addition to the 3% that's going directly to the communities. All right, and NNPC is not being scrapped. So you have all of this going on, and all of this is going to be for the benefit of everybody. So I really want to ask Nigerians watching this program to please resist the commentary of those who are always using religious and ethnic lens through which they analyze everything. Let us look at what is in the benefit of everybody. That is what Mr. President is doing, and that is what is in this document. And
I want to thank you very much, as always, Ajuri Ngelale. Welcome back. We've not seen you in a few weeks, and that's because you were away for a well-deserved rest. Welcome back to the block. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, then. So, as he said in there, I got the impression that it was a bit miffed if people are not really seeing the bigger benefits to the country and to all parts as a whole. But you see, he's a Nigerian himself. He knows. We will talk. People will talk, and people are raising their apprehensions.
I said something, Yori. Regardless of all the other conditions that needed to be satisfied, two are necessary: international acceptance and local tolerance. Let me quickly explain. International acceptance simply means you are dealing with an international product. The international oil companies, international global oil community must buy into that. If they don't buy into it, they will not come into contract.
Because I'm expecting that to happen.
No, but that's the thing.
I'm expecting that to happen.
That's why I told you, everybody...
We didn't have things reduced to writing before. This
bill was signed less than 24 hours ago. So people will need to see the assented bills.
Let me just thank you very much, Chidi in Kafanchan, for holding on extra long. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chief Yori.
Just Yori, thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning, Engineer Zaka.
Yes.
Morning, sir.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, I want to thank the President for signing the PIB into law. And I want to strongly believe that the bill is meant to serve the interests of Nigerian people, and particularly the littoral states where these natural resources are being tapped from. So in as much as the essence of signing of the words, the letters of the bill will be met, I want to believe that it is going to serve the interests of the Nigerian people as well as the people of the Niger Delta. Once these are going to be put in place, I want to believe that it is going to be well with Nigerians and the Niger Deltans in particular. Thank you very much, and God bless Nigeria.
Indeed, I can say amen to that. Thank you very much, Chidi in Kafanchan.
So the second condition is local tolerance, and when you talk about local tolerance, all we mean is regardless of the international acceptance, they will need to come in and contract, explore, or drill for the oil here.
And now we have a law now that we can base all of that on.
Exactly, but that's where the issue of local tolerance means now what happens to the host communities? What happens to areas that you have depots and pipelines? And for me, even the definition of host community needed to be crystal clear. As far as I'm concerned, a host community is a community that is associated with the physical extraction of crude oil or gas. In other words, we can be in the same local government, but if there is no physical extraction of oil and gas, even within the same local government, you don't qualify as a host community.
I know.
But there are areas where pipelines will pass through, depots will pass through. Those areas will also be impacted by activities of oil and gas. Then you will give them their own description. Yuri, what we are talking about now is, as we break down, for me, what is my concern is this. Will there be deregulation? Yes or no? What kind of deregulation are we going to experience? For me, I'm 100% against the current import-focused deregulation that we want to go into.
Okay, let me take Mazi Okorafo now. Good morning, Mazi Okorafo.
Good morning, Sayori. Good morning, our guests in the studio. Sayori, our major problem in Nigeria is that we talk. That does not solve the situation. I agree that the PIB...
Are you also talking? You're also part of us, so...
I wish that implementation. You see, whether it is 1% or 2%
implementation
above,
is everything.
Let the traditional rulers and the community leaders then organize themselves so that we make use of the resources available. Because if you see, everybody knows what is happening in Niger Delta. But the question is, our traditional rulers, if they have been using that 5 naira they have been collecting before and put food on top of people's table, all this issue will not come up. It becomes nothing because everything. Government should make a policy that all this money they give to the down, all those that the traditional rulers and the youth should be involved when these things are being said. Because if the youth are not involved, all this agitation will continue going on.
Indeed. I understand you, Mazi, and I'm sorry, I've got to interrupt you because I'm so sorry. As you said, implementation is key. Otherwise, I was reading Bismarck Rwani was being a prophet saying that, look, if those very things that Mazi was talking about are not addressed, then unfortunately, and nobody wants it, restiveness will continue.
Correct. Social anarchy.
Indeed. And Ajuri Ngelale, the presidential spokesperson, was saying that people probably need to see the bill. They need to, you yourself have said it, the assented bill. They need to see it and understand it, and that is against the backdrop of his premise that this is the best benefit in the circumstances.
We may end up finding out that all the T's have been crossed
and all the I's have been dotted. But on that note, I want to thank you very much, Bala. As always, Mr. Bala Zaka is a petroleum engineer. Thank you very much for coming on and helping us understand all of this. And this is without any prejudice to the kudos to the president that it is under his watch that this was finally signed. He has broken that jinx, and it is for the benefit of Nigerians.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Balazaga. Thank you very much once more to Mr. Ajuri Ngelale, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs that came on earlier. And indeed, thanks very much to all our guests who, phone-ins that have really made the program what it is. Thank you once again. Join us tomorrow for a fresh edition, please. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.